Good afternoon, Asa. It is Friday, or as I record this, Monday. That's how recording in advance works. I've got a funky little project I'm going to do, and I'm also going to show you how to develop film. I went to see Train with Brooks, got a bunch of cool photos, and I want to see how they turn out. And I'm also going to do a little experiment while we do it and keep you guys in the loop. So we're going to start with some film I've already taken pictures of, specifically this strip. Now, the cool thing about this strip, there's a couple cool things, but it's got one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken of Emma on here. And it's not only a cute picture of her, but it's got a bunch of things in focus here. I'll show you that. And so you can see that not only is it a good picture, well, in fact, you probably can't see that it's a good picture just of Emma, but you can probably tell it's got very good detail. A lot of my photos are either underexposed, but this one turned out grand. And we're gonna see if I can take a picture of this using some of my zoom lenses and therefore have a positive image on the film for this next round of developing. Okay, and now the camera set back up. We're gonna, sounded good. Roll of film, baby. I've closed just about every window and you can still hear that. So you're gonna have to tune it out, and I apologize. While that goes on, we're gonna play a game of chicken and see how long until I boil alive. All right, Asa, so today, now, we're really gonna get started with the show. We're gonna develop the roll I just took out. Chemicals for later, we'll get into them. But first, we gotta do the fun bag part. This is a magical box that you can actually pour liquids into, and they have to go around a bunch of 90-degree bends so light doesn't actually get it. So inside this container is completely dark, but it still allows us to put chemicals in, take chemicals out, clean it, put in different chemicals, all the works. This is the film reel. This is the reel that we want to get the film onto while it's in this bag. This reel will hold it. They'll hold it all spaced. It can take a whole roll of film and in this much space, hold it with space in between for chemicals to get in. We got a pretty simple process to get it loaded into this machine. And then from there, we can go and work on chemicals. We need this guy to load the film onto. We're gonna need this to put this assembly into, and the cap obviously, so that the film doesn't actually get exposed to light. Because while the bag is dark, once we take it out, it's not dark. That is easy enough. This has almost no mass or anything, so we put it on top. You don't need it technically, but I feel safer with it on. Even with the 90-degree corners, it's nice to pretend that this helps it more somehow. So first I'll show you quick how this whole thing will go. You'll take this guy here. This is your film canister. You've got a canister opener here. Pop it open like a bottle. You figure it out. You gotta do it in the bag, so there's no way to show you well, but not that hard. Then what you're going to do is put down the scissors, because you don't need them yet. Hello, Asa. Future Levi here, if you can believe it. So in this video, I erroneously said that you only need the scissors to cut the trailing edge of the film, but you also have this thing called the film leader. You can see it's that little notch right here. What happened was I didn't cut it off during this film development process, but what you're supposed to do is cut it off so you have a flat face that looks more like that. And the reason you do that is because you've got it held within two rails and you want it to be stuck in them. But if you do it like this top part can duck down, derail. That's where all the problems come. That's why it bunched up. That's why some parts of the film end up touching each other, not developing properly. So keep that in mind while you're watching this, and keep that in mind if you are using this as a tutorial, which I don't think you should. When you do that, you will end up with something somewhat like this. This is just an old piece of film I poorly developed that I decided to put on here to show you how it works. I have film that is free on one end, and on the other end, attached to an axle. And it'll be something like this. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take this edge here, and in the spool, you'll see you've got this flat side, and you've got this curved side, and you're gonna feed it into this flat side here. And then here on the sides, you'll see a couple of ball bearings. You want those to be free. What they will essentially do is act like ratchets. Here, film, the flat side of this guy, you feed it in, a little bit in, so you got it in. You'll want it to go forward a bit, And then what you can do is you can start winding it like this. You might need to hold down the film a little bit at first, because what you end up banking on is that it'll go through this spool. You can see it spooling up here, and it'll spiral in, and eventually you'll have enough friction there that it won't want to pull it back, and it will need the sprocket to be engaged by the ball bearing to do so. So now it's in a bit. You can see that I am more consistently winding it up just by doing this. This is the normal mode of operation for this thing. And you basically keep rolling this guy up until you get the whole thing on there. So I will probably see you at the end. Now, when you get to the end like this, what you'll do in the dark bag is take the scissors and cut the end off because you don't want to futz with it. But since I'm in the light and it's just Scotch tape, I'm going to just peel it off. And then at that point, you do it a few more times to really get it in there. And it'll obviously not be able to push it once it's passed, so wherever it gets to is kind of where it ends up. This thing, of course, in there I usually keep it on that, and you need this ring on it too, but for demonstration I'm not doing that. Put that in here, you put the cap on, and you put the red cap on. And then you can open up the bag, and the film is in this dark chamber that we can add chemicals to, take chemicals away from without exposing it to light. Then, once you're ready to get done, you can actually just kind of turn it, also turn it a little bit more forward, and the two sides pop apart, and there is your developed film. You can take that off, then you go hang it so it can dry, and well, that's all of the film loading and unloading stuff, which I think is the scarier part of this whole process. So let's put stuff in the bag, do the real film, and then I'll show you how the chemicals work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this chemical called Rodinal, and we are going to dilute it 1 part to 100 parts water in this jug so we can put it in here with the film. Going to the chemical lab, aka my kitchen sink. So the first thing we're going to do here is we are going to add Rodinal to this bucket, and then we're going to fill it until we're done filling it to the right amount. So we're going to look at this guy, and we're going to, you're probably not going to be able to read it, but on here it says for 1 times 355 millimeter, you need 375 cubic centimeters of water. Or, 375 milliliters, which I will round up to 4 just to make the numbers easier. We look at the Rodinal, and we do stand development, which is a 1 to 100 ratio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4 milliliters of this into our mixing jug, and then we're just going to fill it to about the 400 milliliter mark. I have not found this to be super exact. I don't know if you can read that there, about 4 milliliters. Technically, you should want to fill this up to 404, but you're not going to get that accurate. 4 milliliters, you can then fill this guy up to try and get any of the Rodinal that didn't leave there into there. And then what I used to do is I used to measure out this graduated cylinder 50 milliliters at a time until I got up to the magic number, but that took a long time and I would always lose count, and so this is what I do now. And I set it on the counter so I can read it after it stops wiggling. And I see I'm about 475, so I'm going to add a bit more plain water. Then what we're going to do, we're going to take this, we're going to pour the chemicals in it. Bottoms up. Then we have this little stir stick thing, which you can set in and use it to mix up your stuff. Since this is something called stand development, you have to let it stand. So most of the time you have to do timing and stuff. Here it says for the 1 to 100 ratio, you do 30 minutes plus 30 more minutes after shaking and mixing. So doing this is rotating the canister around in there, getting the film all covered up with. Then you want to mix it up like this too. And after all that mixing, you want to give it a few thunks to try and get any air bubbles out so you don't have any pockets of undeveloped film. And then I set this in the corner for 30 minutes. So this is the 30-minute mark. In 30 more minutes, we can start fixing it, which will be a lot more fun. All right, Asa, it has been an hour of developing. It's 6:30 now. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour this out, fill it with water to clean it a bit. Now that the developer is out, we are going to add some fixer. It'll basically freeze the film as it is. So that way it's preserved as an image. This stuff is fun because I have a pre-mixed solution there. It's actually reusable. But in case anyone is wondering what I'm using, here is the bottoms up. And the reason I remember that I messed this up by not putting the thing in there is because usually you test this to make sure it's still good by putting a piece of film in it. And that piece of film is usually gotten when you cut off the end, but I didn't cut off the end, so there's no piece of film to check it with. In reality, I don't have to measure this because it should work either way, but yeah. This fixer step should go for about 12 minutes. It is also a bit nice in that it's harder to overdo than developing, although with the stand development, that's also pretty hard. The bubble tap, and we'll wait for 12 minutes. All right, and while we wait for that to work, we're gonna use wetting agent. This is pretty much makes the water have less surface tension, so it sticks to the film less and you get less watermarks. You mix this 1 to 200 with water. Bottoms up. Look at that, you know it's working because it's bubbly. Alrighty, so that's been about 12 minutes, so we should pour this guy out and hopefully it'll be developed. We can use that stuff later, so we'll put it back in this jug. Put it in here, sploosh. Now we're going to put the wetting agent in. We're going to stir that, let it sit for a bit. And that's the moment of truth. So, here we go. Hey! I don't know if you can kind of see them there, but doesn't look like the worst. Welcome back to the table for the moment of truth. Bana! Emma's in here now. Say hi, Emma. Hi. See how that film looks. Baby, oof. Does not look great. Ugh. Wow, that is actually a lot of good photos. All right, Asa, now the film is done drying. We can start cutting it up, put it in these plastic things, and then we can start taking a look, see how good they're looking, both here and maybe scanning some. Good, but it's got, you can see underdeveloped stuff around it. Same here. That's just a picture out the window. And here's our experiment. That is a negative of a picture of a negative. So it came out positive, and I'm very actually excited about that. And Asa, now that we've got our negatives, we want to scan them. So they're just slotted into this holder here, clamped down, and we will see them on the computer. And here are a few of the pictures that are poorly framed because I can't for the life of me figure out how to do that with iMovie. Me and Brooks went to a heritage museum for some of these shots. In this one, you can see in the upper right-hand side, the big kind of white blob. That's where it was underdeveloped, so it's actually black on the film, and then the computer scans it and turns it into a negative. You can kind of see it, too, on this twilight shot of the city, which I thought kind of added to the effect. But all in all, this is a good, fun first test of a camera, and I'm excited that I got to bring you along, Asa. Again, I wouldn't really recommend anyone follow this for instructions, but if you really want to know my method, I have a link in the description to my website page on it. And Asa, I'll see ya on Saturday.